And that is my presentation. I hope that this has been helpful, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Hassan Masiki is my name. I'm going to ask you a question about the visa for when you apply for your spouse and your fiance. I understand there are two types of visa, K1 and K2, if I remember correctly.
K3, yes.
And also my understanding is that one of them will allow you to work. I think if you're a fiance, the visa itself allows you to work as when you arrive, and one of them you have to petition immigration for a work permit. Is that correct?
Card. And you don't need to petition for work permit. And the LPR card usually takes about 2 months to arrive. If you need to work before that, before you have that documentation, and that's usually that's the standard documentation that the Department of Homeland Security gives you that says, I'm allowed to stay in the United States, I can live here, I have the right to work here, I have the right to a social security number. If you need, that sort of authorization before that, you can petition the Department of Homeland Security for specific work authorization. The difference between, arriving, having already been married, and getting married in the States is a fiancé is not entitled to the LPR status until they get married. So if you wait and get married in the States, that's just going to add more time.
Adil Naji. First, thank you very much, Mrs. Kazemi, for your well put together presentation. My question has 3 parts. Number 1 is more general, second specific, and the third is general. In regards to people who have visas and their passports expired, or in terms of the new policy that the Moroccan government is trying to implement, the biometric passport, do they have to apply for a new visa or not? And the second question is, when you have a working visa, H-2B, and it's extended for 1 year, can you have it for multiple entry or only one entry? And my third question will be, if you need to reschedule the appointment, do you have to file the new application, or it's just if you miss the application, if you miss the schedule by 1 day or 2 days, how do you do that? Thank you.
Let's see if I remember and get everything right. Thank you very much for your first question. It's an extremely important one. And if you can tell everybody you know the answer to this question, I would appreciate it greatly. You do not need a new visa if your valid visa is in an expired passport, if the visa is completely intact and readable. If there are holes punched in it, if someone drew a line through it, if they damaged it, you need a new visa. But if the Moroccan government just canceled the visa by stamping annulé in there and punching holes in the cover, but the visa is still intact, all you need to do is bring the old passport with the visa and your new passport in order to travel. So if you have those two together and the visa is still fine, it looks like it did when you received it, you can travel with it. If you're worried that Royal Air Morocco will not let you travel, what you can do is go to the State Department's webpage at state.gov and go to their frequently asked questions section on visas. And you can print the answer, because that question is on the webpage, and it asks, can I travel with a valid visa in an expired passport? And it gives you the same answer I just gave you. So if you want a document to show the people at the counter and say, I can travel with this, you don't need to turn me around, you can just print that from the State Department's website. Your question about the H-2B and other work visas. The officer will determine how many entries a visa is valid for. If it's an extended H-2B, it's not like 3 weeks or something. If it's an extended one, they generally make it multiple entries because they know people might have a reason to leave the country. They might have to go see a family member who's sick in Morocco, or their H-2B might be for a year. And it's, not unlikely that they're going to want to go home and see their families. So typically speaking, we make longer term work visas. Multiple entries for that reason. And your third question is escaping me, so I did not. The schedule, the appointment schedule. If you make an appointment and you can't keep it, just email nivcasablanca@state.gov and ask us to cancel your appointment. And once you cancel it, you can just make another appointment. You don't have to pay another fee. You don't have to fill out another form. You just need to, and canceling the appointment is really a courtesy for us, so that we, if you're not coming that day, we can open that appointment for someone else to come. So we really appreciate if you cancel that appointment and just make an appointment for a day that does work for you.
Hi, I'm Nadia Duchel. Thank you for coming to clarify some of the questions that we always have, and in the past, never answered. My question is, how much money do you would like to see in the account and bank account for the person who is applying for the visa? And two, what's a BAC? The BAC you mentioned.
Oh, the baccalaureate degree.
Oh, the BAC. Thought about the BAC.
My apologies, I meant the baccalaureate degree.
And also, you mentioned you were going to be visiting some universities. Which ones?
The universities, I visited Stratford University and the Northern Virginia Community College. Tomorrow I'm going to be visiting Virginia International University. These are universities and colleges that are very popular with Moroccan students.
Are you coming to George Mason?
You know, I've talked to a number of people who have said that there are, you know, a lot of Moroccan students at George Mason.
I'm a professor there.
You know, if I can schedule something for tomorrow, I'm afraid tomorrow is the only work day that I'm going to be in town for. But it's funny because we were looking through our database and I didn't see a lot of F visas. So it's possible that, you know, I bet what's happening is we have a lot of students going to Northern Virginia Community College and then transferring through the Access program. So let's talk afterwards, and we'll see what we can do. And if not, we can just you know, exchange information. And if there's anything, if you have any questions, if I can be of any help, I'd be happy to.
How much money?
The money. This very much depends on the person, because I'll be honest with you. We know that your parents don't want to live in America. And honestly, please don't apply for an immigrant visa for them if they want to spend 2 months of the year in America visiting their grandkids, and then they want to spend 10 months in Morocco, because the Border Patrol guys get really annoyed when someone uses their green card, like a tourist visa. If your parents want to, you know, come and stay for 2 months a year, they can do that with a B1, B2. You don't have, and the problem with the immigrant visa is even the fast ones take a year. And for that year, they can't come visit you because we won't give a tourist visa to someone who has an immigrant application. Because the tourist visa is for someone who doesn't want to live in America. And if you have an immigrant application, that means you do want to live in America. So for your parents, honestly, I don't care how much money they have in the bank because I know they don't want to live in America. You know, they want to come and see their grandkids and then they want to go home. And for people who, you know, are not in the position of elderly folks who have lived their whole life somewhere and they really have all of their ties to that community, you know, we want to show that you can, if you say that you want to go to the United States and you want to visit your sister for a month, you should show that you're not going to make yourself broke by paying for the plane ticket. If you don't have that kind of money and someone else in the United States is paying for it, we understand. We just also want to see that that person can pay for the plane ticket without being broke. You know, honestly, it's tougher for young people to get visas. So, you know, for them, it is hard. They have to show that they have a good job in Morocco, not that they just have a job. But if you're 25 and you're not yet married and you don't have a very high salary, you know, it's tougher for you to show that your intent is to come back. Because we could say you have an okay job in Morocco, but you could make 10 times as much in the United States. So it depends on the person. I know that's not, you know, a great answer because it doesn't give you like a magic number, but I hope that kind of clarifies, you know, what we're looking for.
Amal Fhel, thank you for your presentation, Ms. Kazemi. My question is regarding nannies. As you're familiar with our culture in Morocco, every home at least should have one nanny at home to take care of the kids. Everybody, I'm sure, in this room wishes to have a nanny here. And it's not about the cost or what we can afford to pay people here, if we make the income. But the question is, it's somebody who talks our language, who understands our culture, who knows what to feed our kids. So the question, how can you accommodate, or is there any help that you can provide?
The only thing I can think of looking into, because the problem is you can't get an H-1B to be a nanny, but you can get a J visa. It's an exchange visa for an au pair. And it's very limited. Like, we don't do them for a long-term period of time. It's like a year or two, which is kind of the problem. So if you want someone to really be there with your kids for all of the developmental period, that really doesn't exist. And part of the reason is, you know, the purpose of the H-1B visa is to find people with particular skills that are lacking in the United States and match them up with employers. So employers don't say, we don't have enough software engineers in America. We need to bring them from somewhere else. I recognize that there's an extraordinary value in, you know, keeping your culture alive. I'm very lucky that, like, my mother stayed home until I was 5 years old, so I speak Farsi. And I wouldn't if that wasn't the case, because I spoke nothing but Farsi in the home. If we had a babysitter who was American, you know, I wouldn't speak Farsi today. But sadly, that's not an H-1B category, because H-1B employers, you know, it's not for household help. The exception, and I know we have at least one G visa in the room. If you're here on a G visa or an A visa, if you are the employee of an international organization or a diplomat, you can bring household staff, so you can bring a nanny. Otherwise, you know, we don't have a long-term program.
Countries where you can bring nannies, like the nationality. For example, there are countries where you can bring from Brazil as an example, but Morocco was never on that on the list. So I was wondering if there's restrictions on certain countries.
I'm not aware of that. You know, to be honest with you, I've not handled any au pair cases as you know, exchange visitor visas, but I'm not aware of that restriction.
You want to follow up?
Yes.
You have a follow-up question after?
Yeah, I just want to share my story with the nanny, actually, because I did bring one. But I had to hire a lawyer, of course, and we had to go through a process where we had to place an ad in the newspaper, and everybody coming for the interview didn't have to qualify for my needs. And finally, I mean, I had to spend a lot of money, and I had to wait a lot of time. Finally, they approved it, and I brought nanny. It was 1 year only, but it has to be renewed for 3 years. So.
Right. So it does exist, and you found a way to work the system to, not in a pejorative sense, but in the sense of you have figured out what it is that DHS wants. And that is actually very clever to show. The point is that they want to see that there is a need for something that is not being met in the domestic American community. Yes. Yes. But you might find that you put an ad and you find a young Moroccan who, you know, speaks Darija and can speak Darija with your kids and make them mean tagine, who would then meet your needs. And so, you know, you could fill that need domestically. But again, the portion of showing that there's a need that's not being met in terms of employment is actually something that DHS handles. It's not the State Department. And I realize that distinction is very artificial to everyone except the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security. To us, it's very obvious what is our responsibility and what is their responsibility. To nobody else is that clear. But in general, if you are already in America and you want to do something to change your status or to, you know, like to petition for someone else, your first point of contact is the Department of Homeland Security. It's when you're overseas that it's the State Department's responsibility.